Light is everywhere, though we often take it for granted. It determines when we wake and when we sleep, guides us in darkness, and gives color to the world we see. Every ray carries energy, a story of life and mysteries that we are only beginning to understand. Plants and animals have relied on its signals for millions of years, and we humans are still discovering how deeply it affects our biology, behavior, and emotions. Light shapes the rhythms of our body, influences our moods, and can even alter how we perceive reality. It is an invisible architect of life, linking evolution to everyday experience, science to culture, biological processes to our personal experiences. It is both a source of life and a formidable challenge whose influence cannot be fully controlled. In this exploration, we will examine light from different perspectives: its role in nature, its impact on living organisms, the mysteries of color and rhythm, and the surprising phenomena that constantly open new questions for us. Though light is everyday, it hides stories that can change the way we see the world and ourselves. Light. The word seems banal, ordinary, something we never question because it simply is. Yet if we pause and reflect, we realize that light is one of the most fundamental forces in our universe. It is neither an object nor a substance. It is both a wave and a particle. Scientists have debated its nature for centuries, and quantum physics continues to uncover new secrets that make light appear almost like a living organism, full of energy and potential. Every ray of light that reaches our planet carries a story billions of years in the making, traveling from the sun's core, through space, through the atmosphere, before falling on a leaf, a body of water, or our skin. Light waves have different wavelengths, from ultraviolet, invisible to the human eye, to infrared, and each interacts differently with matter, altering it, stimulating it, warming it, or illuminating it. It is these subtle differences that give rise to color, perception, and the full spectrum of optical phenomena that make the world we see so rich and multidimensional. Light is not merely a physical phenomenon. It is also a carrier of information. Every dewdrop reflects not only its surroundings, but also the laws of physics: refraction, reflection, diffraction. In nature, light becomes a language. Plants read it to grow, animals use it to navigate space, and humans have been interpreting its subtle signals for thousands of years. From the first fires illuminating caves to today's LEDs and lasers, light has been a constant companion, setting the rhythm of our existence. Moreover, light is incredibly fast, traveling 300,000 kilometers per second, which allows it to connect distant corners of the universe in an instant. Thanks to light, astronomers can observe stars as they were millions of years ago, and life on Earth can follow a circadian rhythm naturally aligned with sunrises and sunsets. It bridges the microcosm of cells with the macrocosm of galaxies, connecting physics with biology, energy with perception, matter with consciousness. And while it seems obvious that light just is, in reality, it is one of the most extraordinary phenomena in the universe. An invisible architect of life, constantly shaping the world as we know it. Every ray carries potential, mystery, and the question: how many more secrets lie hidden in what seems like ordinary, everyday brightness? In nature, light acts like an invisible conductor, directing all life processes, though most of us never think about it. For millions of years, plants have read its rhythm and direction, extracting energy from sunlight for photosynthesis, a process that transforms humble carbon dioxide and water into glucose and oxygen, the foundation of life on Earth. Every leaf, dewdrop, and blade of grass actively participates in this process, recording wavelength, intensity, and time of day to synchronize growth and development. Animals also continuously interpret the information carried by light. Birds migrate guided by the sun's angle and the polarization of light in the sky. Insects like bees recognize flowers through ultraviolet patterns invisible to humans. Fish navigate ocean depths where light is barely a filtered blue glow. And some creatures, such as jellyfish or plankton, generate their own light using bioluminescence to attract prey or ward off predators. Here, light becomes not only energy but a language, information transmitted in thousands of subtle and precise ways. Some organisms take it even further. Plants in dense tropical forests can detect the tiniest light gaps, adjusting their leaves for optimal exposure. Desert animals track moonlight to conserve energy in extreme conditions. Even microorganisms like plankton respond to light changes, rising in water according to day and night cycles, thereby regulating nutrient flows and maintaining oceanic ecosystem balance. Light in nature is also an unpredictable artist. Effects of reflection, refraction, and diffraction create spectacles that humans perceive only through microscopes or high-resolution cameras. Sparkling morning dew, glittering leaf surfaces, colorful butterfly wings, or shimmering fish scales. All of this is not only beautiful but functional, signaling, camouflage, attraction, warning. Every wavelength matters, and every color is part of a complex system of communication. In this way, light connects the smallest microorganisms with ocean giants, plants with predators, night with day, life with energy. It is a foundation that allows the biosphere to function in harmony, though its presence seems so obvious that we rarely consider how many secrets each ray hitting Earth conceals. This makes light both an indispensable source of life and an enigma we are still striving to understand fully. The light that enters our eyes every day is more than just what enables vision. It is an invisible regulator of our body, our biological clock, determining when we feel energetic and when we feel sleepy. Our eyes detect its intensity, wavelength, and color, and the brain interprets this information, sending signals to hormones that control circadian rhythm, mood, appetite, and even focus. A slight change in light intensity can shift this rhythm, and chronic lack or excess of light introduces chaos into the body, manifesting not only as fatigue, but also subtle changes in metabolism, immunity, and cell regeneration. But it is not just that light tells us when to sleep. Different wavelengths have different effects on the body and mind. Blue light, which reaches us mainly from the sky and screens, stimulates the brain, increases alertness, and suppresses the production of melatonin, the sleep hormone. That is why long hours in front of screens can disrupt sleep, while at the same time enhancing concentration during the day. Red and yellow light work in a completely different way. They calm, relax muscles, and prepare the body for rest. It is a subtle, biological conversation between the environment and the organism, one that we often do not notice. Light also affects emotions. Bright, natural light can improve mood, help combat seasonal depression, and boost energy levels. Conversely, a lack of light can cause feelings of gloom, reduce immunity, and slow regeneration. Our eyes do more than just see the world. They measure time, biological temperature, and rhythms that have synchronized our bodies with the environment for millions of years. Moreover, light allows us to perceive subtle emotional cues in other people, changes in shadow, the glow of skin, or contrast in facial colors, all transmit information about someone's emotional state to our brain. There is something primal, almost instinctive about this process, which has shaped social behavior since the dawn of humanity. In this way, light, though biologically invisible, becomes a central player in our lives, linking body and mind, nature and culture, past and future. It is energy, a message, a rhythm, and a guide that determines how we function in the world. And while we see it every day, only by understanding its effects can we appreciate that each ray of light carries a story of life, biology, and evolution, of which we are a part. Light accompanies us every day, but like any powerful force, it has a dark side. Every ray of sunlight, while giving life, carries the potential for damage whose effects may only become visible years later. Ultraviolet radiation, invisible to the human eye, penetrates our skin and slowly, almost imperceptibly, alters cellular structures. What initially seems minor, slight freckling, subtle redness after prolonged sun exposure, is only the tip of a biological iceberg. Every UV photon generates reactive oxygen species in the skin, which destroy collagen and elastin, the fibers responsible for skin elasticity. Over time, this leads to sagging, wrinkles, and an increased risk of DNA mutations that can result in serious health problems. Blue light, which surrounds us almost constantly today from computer, phone, and tablet screens, also has a dark side, though it is less obvious. It does not cause burns or immediate damage, but subtly affects us, altering biological rhythms, disrupting melatonin production, and influencing cellular regeneration. Chronic exposure can lead to eye fatigue, reduced concentration, and may even accelerate aging processes in the skin around the eyes, where the protective layer is thinnest. But light's influence is not limited to the physical body. It can shape our emotions, sometimes against our will. Bright, harsh light in the workplace or the urban jungle of LEDs can trigger tension, stress, and hyperactivity. Darkness, or the lack of it at night, the disruption of natural day-night rhythms, prevents the body from regulating hormones effectively, while the brain is constantly bombarded with stimuli that interfere with recovery. This is a subtle struggle we fight every day, often unconsciously, in a world full of artificial light. Interestingly, some organisms have learned to use the dark side of light creatively. Certain jellyfish, deep-sea fish, and ocean microbes emit their own light, allowing them to communicate in total darkness. In these cases, darkness and light are two sides of the same biological coin, tools for defense, attraction, or navigation. It is striking that humans, though diurnal creatures, increasingly live in a world where the natural rhythm of light and dark is disrupted. Screens, artificial lighting, urban lamps, all force our bodies and brains to cope with consequences that are not immediately noticeable, but accumulate over years. Thus, light is a dual tool. It can give life and energy, but it can also slowly harm us if we do not learn to work with it. It is a reminder that every power comes with a cost, and the natural day-night rhythm, which evolution taught us to follow for millions of years, is one of our most precious gifts. Invisible to the eye, subtle in its effects, light is both a protector and a potential adversary. And we must learn to recognize when it is nurturing us and when it is depleting us. Light is not just a source of energy. It is also an artist and illusionist, painting the world we see in ways that our brains often cannot fully grasp. Every color we perceive, every subtle shift in hue, results not only from the wavelength of light, but also from how our eyes and brain interpret the light reaching the retina. What seems obvious, a red apple, green grass, blue sky, is actually the product of an incredibly complex interplay of waves, reflections, and absorption, processed through billions of synapses in our brain. Some colors affect us almost magically. Warm tones can evoke a sense of security. Cool tones can induce calm or focus. Scientists are studying how different wavelengths influence mood, stress levels, and even decisions made in work or daily life. Our brains, trying to organize an overwhelming amount of information, create illusions and contrasts that sometimes surprise. A thin line may appear thicker, and two colors identical in a lab may look different in natural light. Light also produces effects that evolution has exploited in nature to perfection. Animals use it for camouflage, attracting mates, or warning of danger. Some butterflies reflect ultraviolet light, invisible to humans but readable by other insects. Deep-sea fish use bioluminescence to create illusions of space and confuse predators. This demonstrates that light perception in nature is not just about seeing. It is an entire strategy for survival, communication, and environmental manipulation. In humans, light also creates illusions. Contrast, shadow, reflection. Our brain interprets these in fractions of a second, sometimes drawing incorrect conclusions. Everyday examples abound. Changes in object color under different lighting, optical illusions, the perception of movement where there is none. This shows that color and light perception is not objective. It is a subjective reading of the world, filtered through the brain, emotions, and experience. Light, therefore, bridges science and magic, physics and psychology, energy and perception. It is an invisible artist shaping the reality around us, determining what we see, how we interpret it, and how we react. Every ray carries a mystery, and though it seems obvious, it can still surprise, deceive, delight, and remind us that the light we observe every day is far more complex than we might imagine. Light has always been more to humans than just a way to see the world. It has become a tool capable of healing, regulating, and even changing the way we feel and think. Phototherapy, or light-based treatment, harnesses this extraordinary power in a practical yet fascinating way. This is not a creation of modern technology. For centuries, humans observed that sunlight improves mood, alleviates skin conditions, and even influences bodily rhythms. Today, thanks to science, we can transform these observations into precise therapies, controlling wavelength, intensity, and exposure time to achieve the desired effect. Some forms of phototherapy are used to treat seasonal depression, sleep disorders, and neurological issues. In specially designed rooms, lamps emit light of a specific wavelength that mimics natural sunlight, regulating hormone production in the brain, such as melatonin and serotonin. The effect is surprisingly fast. Just a few minutes a day can improve mood, enhance concentration, and increase energy, acting as a natural reset for our biological clock. But phototherapy is not limited to the brain. In dermatology, light has become an extraordinarily precise tool. It treats skin diseases such as psoriasis, eczema, and acne. Different wavelengths penetrate the skin to varying depths, influencing cellular metabolism, immune responses, and regenerative processes. This allows for faster wound healing, reduced inflammation, and stimulation of collagen production, affecting skin elasticity and youthfulness. Fascinatingly, light can also be used to treat certain cancers through photodynamic therapy, where it activates special chemical compounds that destroy diseased cells while leaving healthy ones unharmed. Phototherapy also reveals how subtle light's influence on emotions and perception can be. Research shows that different colors of light can elicit different psychological responses. Warm hues soothe, relax the body, and lower heart rate, while cool hues stimulate, improve focus, and enhance performance. In a modern world where artificial light surrounds us almost constantly, phototherapy reminds us that not all light is neutral. Its rhythm, intensity, and color can regulate our vital functions as much as diet or sleep. The futuristic aspects are also remarkable. Today, phototherapy examines light's impact on brain aging, neuroplasticity, memory, and nerve cell regeneration. Scientists experiment with precise wavelengths to stimulate metabolic processes, reduce oxidative stress, and support the brain's self-cleansing mechanisms. It is fascinating that something as fleeting and invisible as light can shape our body and mind at the cellular level. In this context, light becomes more than a physical phenomenon. It becomes a partner in biology, an invisible architect of health and psyche. Phototherapy demonstrates that the everyday sunlight we often take for granted is simultaneously a source of energy, a regulator, a healer, and a teacher. It reminds us that living in harmony with the natural rhythm of light is not a luxury. It is a foundation for health, mood, and our body's adaptive capacity. Light has accompanied humans not only in daily life but also in culture, art, and technology since time immemorial. In prehistoric caves, the first fires illuminated the darkness, and their flames became a medium for storytelling, rituals, and creating symbols. Shadows and light playing across stone walls taught humans how to shape space, interpret movement, rhythm, and contrast, experiences that laid the foundation for later visual art. Light was never merely a physical phenomenon. It has always carried meaning, emotion, and power, allowing humans to convey messages beyond words. In antiquity, humans began to use light increasingly consciously. Temples, pyramids, and statues, their designers leveraged the sun's direction, shifting shadows and natural illumination to evoke a sense of the sacred, mystery, and awe. In China and Egypt, people observed precisely how sunrise and sunset affected rituals, while in Greece and Rome, architects built amphitheaters and temples to use light to accentuate their structures and influence the emotions of spectators. In this context, light became not only an observational tool, but a language shaping human perception and experience. Over the centuries, humans learned to produce their own light, progressing from fires to candles, oil lamps, and eventually complex urban lighting systems. Light became a symbol of progress, knowledge, and control over the environment. In the 17th and 18th centuries, scientists explored its nature. Newton's prism splitting white light into colors, early experiments with electricity, and later inventions like the light bulb and laser opening new possibilities. Light began to serve not only vision, but also communication, scientific research, medicine, and art. Modern technology allows us to use light in ways unimaginable to previous generations. Lasers cut steel in industry, projectors create virtual worlds in cinema, and LED screens transform how we work, learn, and play. Architecture uses light to shape space, guide emotions in rooms and cities, while photography, film, and digital art all rely on light's ability to convey information, set mood, and manipulate perception. At the same time, culture and technology show that light is more than a functional tool. Lantern festivals in Asia, illuminations in Europe, light in religious rituals or contemporary art installations all demonstrate humanity's long-standing fascination with how light evokes emotion, inspires reflection, and sparks imagination. Light has become a medium of communication, a symbol of knowledge, beauty, and control over one's surroundings. Thus, human history intertwines with the history of light. From fires and primitive lamps to architecture, science, art, and the latest technologies, it is omnipresent, shaping our lives, emotions, culture, and science. And though it may seem obvious, its significance is profound, complex, and continuously rediscovered. For light does not merely illuminate space, it shapes our experience of the world and ourselves. In the extreme corners of our planet, light is like a hidden language of nature, whose meaning we grasp only when we look closely. At the poles, the aurora paints the sky with thousands of shades of green, pink, and purple, creating a spectacle that appears almost mystical to humans. But for the atoms in the atmosphere, it is simply a dance of particles. Solar wind collides with Earth's magnetosphere, ionizing gases, which in turn emit light. This phenomenon teaches us that light is not always the sun shining directly on the surface. It can be a message of energy and planetary dynamics, a signal vibrating in rhythm with the entire solar system. In the depths of the oceans, light is even more extraordinary. Where sunlight does not reach, life has found its own sources of illumination. Bioluminescence, the ability of organisms to produce light, serves as a weapon, lure, and communication tool. Small fish with glowing organs attract mates. Plankton synchronized with water currents produce waves of flickering light, and predators use their own light to confuse prey or hide from competitors. In this dark, cold, high-pressure realm, light is a precious resource, determining survival. Every particle of energy is life itself. Light also produces extraordinary effects in the atmosphere. Reflections from ice crystals create halos around the sun or moon. Fog refracts rays into spectacular rainbows, and rain and dust can make sunsets appear like blazing skies. These are phenomena humans have long interpreted as divine signs, artistic inspiration, and symbolic messages, proof that light acts on both physical and emotional levels. Extreme landscapes also showcase light's power. Volcanoes, deserts, glaciers. Each offers a unique palette of colors, contrasts, and intensities. Human eyes and brains adapt to these conditions, interpreting shadows, reflections, and color intensity. High mountains in the rising sun can trigger physical reactions, accelerated heartbeat, adrenaline, awe, and a sense of transcendence. An example of light as not just a physical phenomenon, but a carrier of emotion and experience. It is also remarkable that in extreme environments, light can be both a threat and a source of life. High mountains and deserts, where excessive ultraviolet exposure can damage skin and eyes, and deep waters, where lack of light limits photosynthesis, force organisms to adapt. This contrast teaches us that light is an ambivalent force. It gives life, shapes environments, fosters adaptation, evokes emotions, but also demands respect and understanding of its impact on living beings. In extreme nature, light is therefore a guide, a teacher, and a survival tool. From the polar aurora to the ocean depths, from desert sands to icy peaks, every wave and every ray carries energy, information, and potential that subtly, intricately, and fascinatingly shapes life on Earth. It reminds us that light is not merely what we see daily. It is a universal language spoken by nature itself. For many creatures, night is not merely a time of day, but an entirely different world, governed by subtle shades of darkness and flickering sources of light invisible to humans. Bats, owls, nocturnal insects, and deep-sea fish have learned to use every particle of energy that pierces the darkness. And where light is entirely absent, they produce it themselves. Bats, masters of the night skies, employ echolocation, sending ultrasonic sounds that bounce off obstacles and prey. Invisible to us, this serves as a map, radar, and warning system all at once, a form of sound light in a sunless world. Every wingbeat, every reflected wave is processed by a bat's brain into environmental images, allowing them to hunt, avoid obstacles, and navigate the darkness with astonishing precision. Owls have taken a different approach. Their eyes evolved to detect the faintest sources of light, and a retina filled with rods allows them to perceive movement even in near total darkness. Their flight is almost silent, and each sound and shadow, combined with what they see in dim light, forms a complete map of the terrain in their brains. For owls, night is not a limitation, but a time of exceptional efficiency and mysterious harmony. Nocturnal insects, such as moths, use light in a completely different way. They navigate using natural light sources like the moon and stars, and their sensitive eyes detect light polarization invisible to humans. Some species produce their own light, emitting it in precise pulses to deter predators or attract mates. In this nocturnal world, bioluminescence becomes a language, communicating warnings, inviting reproduction, or coordinating group behavior. The deep oceans present an even more extreme case. There, sunlight does not penetrate at all, and life survives thanks to the ability to generate its own light. Some deep-sea fish have photophores, light-emitting organs that produce blue or green light, perfectly adapted to water, where blue waves travel farthest. Other creatures use bioluminescence as spotlights, lures, or traps. Light becomes both a hunting tool and a survival mechanism. It is a true evolutionary laboratory, where every flash is a precious resource in the struggle for life. Interestingly, many nocturnal species can synchronize their light emissions in spectacular ways. Plankton glows on the ocean's surface, creating waves of flickering points visible from a boat, while insects in tropical forests emit light in rhythmic pulses, forming true nocturnal concerts of nature. This demonstrates that darkness and light are not opposites but two sides of the same survival strategy, one subtle and invisible to most eyes, the other carefully orchestrated for survival and communication in a world where daytime rules do not apply. Nocturnal life shows that limited light does not mean limited function. On the contrary, many species have developed abilities beyond our imagination for perception and adaptation. Every eye, every pulse of light, every ultrasonic wave is part of a complex information network, making darkness a vibrant, intricate, and astonishingly dynamic world. In this context, light is no longer merely a physical phenomenon. It becomes the language of life, a survival strategy, and a tool through which nocturnal creatures dominate a world that seems empty and silent to us. Plants do not become inactive at night, though they may appear asleep to human eyes. A subtle, highly complex interplay of biological processes continues, in which light, even limited, plays a crucial role. Nocturnal plants, such as certain desert cacti or tropical orchids, have adapted to life in shade and twilight, developing photosynthesis mechanisms that allow them to store carbon dioxide at night and use it during the day to generate energy. This survival strategy minimizes water loss and protects against overheating, demonstrating that light does not need to be intense to drive life. Some plants respond to faint light from the moon or stars. Photoreceptors in their leaves can detect tiny amounts of radiation, regulating daily and seasonal rhythms, flowering, and flower opening. Nocturnal flowers often produce scents and colors aimed specifically at nighttime pollinators. Moths, bats, nocturnal beetles, and their subtle fluorescent pigments reflect minimal light, helping pollinators locate nectar in the dark. In this world, every ray is a message, invisible to us but crucial for ecosystem function. Microorganisms in soil and water also utilize nocturnal light. Some photosynthetic bacteria activate metabolic processes in response to minimal light reflected from the moon or water surfaces, supporting carbon and nitrogen cycles. It is an invisible network of interactions through which life in nocturnal ecosystems maintains balance, and light energy, though minimal, is converted into biochemical fuel for subsequent links in the chain of life. Equally fascinating are deep ocean plants adapted to absolute darkness. They lack classical photosynthesis, and many collaborate with bioluminescent microorganisms that generate light necessary for driving local metabolic processes or attracting plankton for nutrition. In this way, even in the darkest corners of the ocean, light becomes the fuel of life, and life becomes the art of adapting to energy scarcity. What is particularly striking is that nocturnal light, even weak and diffuse, regulates entire biological rhythms. Plants and microbes use every shadow, every glimmer, every fluctuation in brightness to synchronize flowering, growth, metabolism, and interactions with other organisms. It is a subtle, precise coordination, whose scale and complexity surpass our imagination. In the world of nocturnal plants and microorganisms, light is therefore not just energy. It is a language, a signal, and a survival strategy. It demonstrates that life can make maximum use of even the smallest amounts of light, creating complex interaction networks in darkness that maintain the balance of entire ecosystems. Night is not emptiness, but an arena where every particle of light and every flash matters, determining growth, reproduction, and survival. In places where sunlight never reaches, life has learned to function in absolute darkness, creating ecosystems almost independent of the surface. Caves, ocean depths, and underground rivers are worlds that seem lifeless to humans, yet they teem with activity, in ways our eyes cannot perceive. For the organisms that inhabit them, the absence of light is not a hindrance. On the contrary, it has become a driver of extraordinary adaptations that make survival in extreme conditions possible. In caves, life has adapted to the absence of colors and shifting shadows. Some fish and invertebrates have lost pigmentation and eyes, but they have gained exceptionally sensitive touch and smell organs. Their sensory systems replace vision, while the microbiome in cave soils and waters processes minimal energy sources, including chemical compounds and organic residues, forming the foundation of the local food web. Interestingly, some cave fish and crustaceans can detect the bioluminescence of other organisms as a signal for communication, but true example of life in light that doesn't exist in the traditional sense. The deep oceans are even more extreme, where water pressure is immense and the temperature is nearly constant and close to zero. Surface light does not reach at all. Life survives thanks to bioluminescence. Deep-sea fish, jellyfish, crustaceans, and plankton produce their own light, which serves both for attracting prey or mates and for communication. Some species emit pulsing signals in rhythmic patterns that attract partners or confuse predators. These miniature light shows determine survival in a world where every flash is a precious energy resource. Some microorganisms in underground and deep-sea ecosystems do not rely on light for photosynthesis. They use chemosynthesis, converting chemical compounds into energy, creating food for other organisms. In this way, self-sufficient networks of life exist entirely isolated from the surface. These extreme ecosystems teach us that light, though essential for most life, is not the only path to survival. Nature has found alternatives, often more sophisticated than anything we know in the everyday world. Remarkably, in such environments, adaptations are combined with extraordinary slowness in biological processes. Cave and deep-sea animals grow slowly, live longer, and reproduce less frequently. Every chemical reaction, every sensory impulse, is optimized to avoid wasting energy. This demonstrates that darkness is not a limitation but a catalyst for evolutionary precision. Life in complete darkness also teaches humility before nature. Organisms that have never seen light develop systems as complex as our senses of sight or hearing. Light, which is obvious to us, may be a luxury or a survival tool for them, and its absence leads to the development of abilities that seem almost fantastical. Night's deep waters and caves show that life does not need light to be extraordinary, complex, and beautifully synchronized into ecosystems full of subtle interdependencies. Imagine a world completely devoid of light. Day and night merge into one impenetrable darkness, with no sun, moon, or stars. Humans, biologically adapted to life in a light-regulated circadian rhythm, would face a series of dramatic challenges. First, the absence of natural light would disrupt our circadian rhythm. The biological clock regulating sleep, body temperature, hormone production, and metabolism would be thrown off balance. Within a few days, the body would confuse night with day, leading to chronic fatigue, disorientation, and mental disturbances. Prolonged darkness would also affect our eyes. The retina and optic nerve are not adapted to function in total darkness. Over time, visual perception would weaken, photoreceptors would atrophy, and spatial orientation would become difficult. What seems obvious in daylight becomes elusive in darkness, and the brain, deprived of visual information, begins to generate hallucinations, inventing images in an attempt to make sense of missing data. Equally significant is the effect of light on the psyche. The human brain responds to its absence by altering neurotransmitter levels, especially serotonin and melatonin, which can lead to depression, anxiety, and serious mood disorders. Studies of isolation in dark environments show that within weeks, people experience temporal disorientation, short-term memory loss, and emotional disturbances. Extended exposure to total darkness can cause permanent changes in the brain, impairing cognitive and physiological functions. Biologically, humans could survive without light for a time if adequate food and water were provided. However, survival without a source of vitamin D, produced in the skin under UV rays, is impossible. Its absence leads to weakened bones, skeletal deformities, and metabolic disorders. In practice, even if the body could function in darkness for weeks or months, long-term physical and mental health would be severely compromised. Surprisingly, some biological adaptations allow certain people to cope better with limited light. Enhanced retinal sensitivity, improved low-light vision, sharpened other senses, and even partial regulation of circadian rhythms via artificial light sources. Nevertheless, total absence of light is something humans cannot tolerate long-term, without serious health and psychological consequences. Thus, light proves to be not merely a tool for perception, but a foundation of human life. It keeps our biological rhythms synchronized, regulates hormones affecting mood and metabolism, and maintains bodily balance. Without it, life becomes an experiment at the limits of physiology and psyche, short-lived, painful, and ultimately unsustainable. Light is not a luxury or an optional addition. It is a necessary condition for life itself.